Stonewall Jackson has long been a figure of legend and romance, as much as any person in the Confederate pantheon, even Robert E. Lee. He embodies the romantic Southern notion of the virtuous lost cause. And that's what we're talking about today on Laughs from the Past. Thomas Stonewall Jackson. What's up? Welcome to Laughs from the Past, Season 2, Episode 9, the penultimate episode of Season 2. And this is an episode I talked about a lot throughout the episode, but I kept reading and reading more and finding out more about Stonewall Jackson. Now, we're not going to go deep into everything, but we're going to touch the surface on just a general bio on this guy. Jake, what do you know about him?
Stonewall. He was tough as a stone wall, they always say.
There you go. That is what they always said.
You had a nice little southern drawl coming out on a few of those words when you start talking about Stonewall Jackson.
Yeah, you have to. Well, you have to read these Confederate books in that voice.
With that, okay.
That's how the Civil War history is done. There's a couple aspects we're going to talk about.
Let's talk about a couple of those aspects.
Now, I think I did this. I sent some of these stories to my sister Elizabeth, who teaches. I don't know the politically correct term right now, but she special needs, mentally,
sure,
whatever it is. She's like autistic and Asperger's and stuff. I think today Thomas Jackson would be high functioning Asperger's.
Okay.
He was the biggest eccentric. He was a literalist. But he was a light switch dude, and like in battle was amazing.
Sure.
Now, there's one little tidbit I want to do right now, and then later in the episode you'll understand why. But I told you this on John Boy and Jake Radio once, a scabbard.
Right.
The audience. Do you want to tell the audience what it is now that you know?
No.
You forget?
Yeah.
It is the thing you put your sword inside of.
Right.
That's what a scabbard is.
Sure.
So.
A sheath.
Yeah, for a gun, like a holster. But for a sword, scabbard. Yeah.
What's the difference between a scabbard and a sheath?
I don't know what a sheath is.
I think a sheath is a scabbard.
A sheath is...
You got the Google machine there.
Sheath. A sheath... images of a sheath... yeah, it looks the same. That looks more for a knife, and it looks like it's leather. Where a scabbard... If we're going to Google image scabbard here.
Scabbard is metal, we think?
And it's definitely a sword.
Okay.
We're getting bigger sizes and, yeah, bigger.
Okay.
Very similar concept.
Yeah.
Now, first I'm going to let my favorite historian, Shelby Foote, from the Ken
Shelby
Burns.
Foote from the Ken Burns The Civil War series.
Yeah, his voice is amazing. I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about some of the eccentric shit, and then we'll discuss it. Then I have more for us.
He was a true eccentric. He believed that if he had pepper in his food, it would make his left leg ache. He would never mail a letter that would be in transit on a Sunday. He was a stricter observer of the Sabbath, and yet so many of his battles were fought on Sundays that the soldiers began to believe that he would fight on Sunday because the Lord would be even more with him.
Jackson was a pious, blue-eyed killer, utterly untroubled by the likelihood of death. It was a man's entire duty, he said, to pray and fight.
He would have a man shot at the drop of a hat, and he'd drop it himself. Sam Watkins.
He had a strange quality of overlooking suffering. There was during one of the battles, he had a young courier, and Jackson looked around for him. He wasn't there, and he said, "Where is Lieutenant so-and-so?" And they said, "He was killed, General." Jackson said, "Very commendable, very commendable." And they put him out of his mind.
What are your thoughts on everything that you just witnessed and heard?
You're right. That gentleman does talk incredibly.
Shelby Foote. So I tweeted this out one day. I was like, I every now and then I check YouTube to see if someone's made a compilations of only the Shelby Foote talking in the whole 10-part Civil War series because I want to fall asleep to it. And then I realized I think I'm gonna have to make it myself.
You might have to do that. Falling asleep to it is crazy weird.
Well, I fall asleep to interviews all the time.
Right, but I just think if you regularly fell asleep to Shelby Foote, that's so weird. I need you to know that.
I know it's weird, but I also know that I would fall asleep to it.
Okay, and that's fine. As long as any more than once a week, I'm freaked out. 2, I mean, I don't like Stonewall Jackson right now.
You don't like him?
No.
Why? Too weird for you?
Because he's ridiculous, and it's like, I feel like he's so supportive of death because he's like a religious guy.
Very, very religious.
Yes.
It's like crazy religious.
Exactly.
Very commendable. It's a fantastic response to finding out someone died.
No, man, that's my nightmare.
Very, very commendable.
You did your job. Like, no, that's not how Poppy Gordo's going out.
All right. So Stonewall Jackson. What about not eating pepper because he felt made his left leg ache?
That's fine. I have no qualm with that.
Okay. So here I'm gonna tell you
You mean Peppa?
Peppa. Yeah. I'm gonna tell you all the bad things that you're not gonna like now.
Okay,
About
let's
him.
get it out of the way.
And then we're gonna flip the switch and tell you all the good things that he probably is. He's the best figure from the Civil War in my opinion. Fought for the
Okay.
South, but dude, he's crazy. Okay, so here's some more of the crazy side. He was such a literalist when it came to duty that he had once, while in the army, worn heavy winter underwear into the summer because he had received no specific orders to change. What do you think about that? You don't like that?
I don't hate that.
No one told me you used to change.
So I kept this outfit on.
So he went to West Point.
Right.
He fought in the Spanish-American War
Yes.
when he was 22, 23 years old, and he went through the ranks. And all the generals, like Lee, Grant, Jackson, Beauregard, a lot of them all fought in this one battle in the Spanish-American War. And then they were all on opposing sides of the Civil War. It's just such a weird
Right.
concept. But then he got moved around to a bunch of different posts in Florida and stuff. In Florida, he was at this post in Florida, and he didn't get along with the guy who was directly above him, and he found out that the guy directly above him was walking around post with another woman, not his wife, and he thought it was his duty to he tattled on the guy,
Right.
and he didn't want to because he broke the wife's heart.
Right.
And he felt really bad. He cried. He sobbed about breaking her heart. But he was like, my duty is stronger than what I care about.
Right.
This is crazy.
He's a mission guy.
But he finally left that, and he went and taught at Virginia Military Institute. And he taught a class, I'll come across it. It was the hardest class. But he insisted on rote recitation. He explained little or nothing. He had survived an attempt led by the school's alumni 6 years before to get rid of him for all those reasons. So he'd just stand up there and he'd recite exactly what he was supposed to be teaching. And if they didn't remember, that was on them.
Yeah.
Tough
Yeah,
strategy.
this guy sucks. I hate you, Stonewall.
You're not a Stonewall fan.
Currently not a Stonewall Jackson fan.
Okay. I think you're going to be.
Okay.
Because he's a quote factory. He's just so many quotes. I'm trying to find this one story though of when he was a teacher. One kid asked him "Teach, can you explain that again?" Called him Old Jack.
Sure.
And he just recited the very same thing he said again. His eyes ached, so he didn't like to use his eyes a lot, so he would read letters and then respond without going over them. So sometimes his responses didn't really go with what it was. And when he taught, he would read the lesson. He would commit it to memory. It would just with his eyes closed, just commit it to memory, recite it at night, and then go into the classroom and just recite it to them. And they'd be like, "Can you explain it?" And he wouldn't explain it.
No.
He'd just tell them again.
No, this is what I'm here to tell you.
It was pretty nuts. Those who knew him well could also have told you that he was a victim of a host of physical ailments, real or imagined, and that he traveled long distances in search of water cures that involved both drinking and soaking in supposedly healing waters. My favorite thing is he would put his head in a bowl of water and open his eyes until he couldn't do it any longer to ease the pain of his eyes.
I mean, I see you. When you said that, you started grinning.
It's hilarious.
Because you know how ridiculous that is.
He would also wear wet shirts. That sucks. That sucks, huh?
This guy's awful, man. I haven't liked one thing yet.
You don't like the soak in his eyes in water?
No.
He's kind of like Dwight from The Office right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me just find the parts. Some more parts about how he was such a literal. There's one tidbit that's great.
Sure.
So I also told you this the other day, just when we were sitting around. He walked really weird. Like they said, he walked like he just got off a horse.
Sure.
Just like wide-legged and long stride, just kind of strutting down the campus.
Okay.
Can you imagine the character? This is a town of 3,000 people, and the school's there, and all the students.
Right.
And it's like, there goes old Jack, wearing a wet shirt, straddling down campus.
Crazy.
He's crazy. He's crazy. When he did speak, he could be maddeningly literal. A visiting Englishman discussing history once said to him, usually in a typically British prefix, "You remember, Major, at this point, Lord Burleigh was Queen Elizabeth's great counselor." Jackson immediately interrupted him, saying, "No, I don't remember that, sir, because I have never known that." I love it. You don't like it?
I think you love the stories of it.
I wouldn't want to be around them.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm back in the day, and I'm like, this guy blows.
I thought this was interesting. He said, similar, when someone used the term "you know" at the end of sentences, he would say, "I do not know." And that's more of the literal stuff, but I didn't know how long that's been around. You know?
Right.
You know?
Finishing a sentence with a you know.
From
Yeah.
1861.
Do you understand?
Yeah. But but it's kind of interesting because that's such a, like, in the sports world, that's every interview.
Right,
says,
you know?
You know? He would not say...
No, I do not know, is what he would say.
Yes, no, I do not know that. He would not say that he wished that any circumstance was different than what it was, meaning he could not bring himself to wish that it were warmer or less windy or even that some accident had not happened. If someone said, "Don't you wish it might stop raining?" he would reply with a quiet smile, "Yes, if the maker of the weather thinks best."
Right.
That's bad. That one's kind of like, dude, shut up.
Yeah.
All of these are kind of like that.
That's what it's like. Like, it's okay to be a person that's kind of wired that way, but you cross a certain point where you're just a blowhard, and he's maybe the biggest ever.
I don't think a blowhard's right, because he's not doing this to be a know-it-all at all. He's very genuine. He's just very awkward.
Like, yes and no. I think to a degree, it's becoming an act for me to a degree.
Oh, it wasn't for him. He knew he was like this, and he put notes in his he carried around notes of how to be better in public.
Right.
Because he knew he was socially awkward.
Sure.
And he was trying to commandeer it, but like it just wasn't wired
I mean, there's a difference between being socially awkward and saying, I hope the maker of the rain. I don't know. There's theatrics involved for me now.
These were his notes when he would go around in public. Endeavor to be at peace with all men. Never speak disrespectfully of anyone without a cause. That's nice. Never mean.
Kind of, unless you're a guy that's just driven strictly by causes, which this man is.
But he wouldn't talk bad about anyone, even like, so that guy in Florida that he didn't get along with, someone was like, "Oh man, he sucks." And he would be like, "He does a lot of other things that are very commendable." Like, he'd never bad talk to anyone. That's a good quality to have. He's right there.
It's not bad.
Never try to appear more wise or learned than the rest of the company. It's pretty good.
Okay.
Use no hurtful deceit. Think innocently. If you speak in company, speak late. I like that one. I actually think that's good advice.
Yeah.
Don't be the guy who just walks in and it sets the tone. Like, you got to wait it out. Like, see, okay, what's the vibe here? and then you fill it in.
Sure.
He couldn't really control his vibe, though. He had actually like physical ailments
Right.
that nowadays would have been diagnosed as something, but food just didn't sit well. He brought his own bread to all dinner parties, and he just basically ate bread, stale bread.
Tough.
Yeah. Okay, you ready for my favorite one?
Sure.
Oh, dude. So this is our favorite joke. He would go to church. He was terrible at public speaking,
Right.
but it was his duty as a leader to
Right.
speak publicly. So he would give these sermons and just stutter and stammer and like be fucking god awful at talking.
Right.
And they were like, "You don't have to do this, Tom."
Right.
He was like, "If it's my duty, I should do it, and hopefully I get better at it." And he would just power through, just keep doing it.
Yeah.
He would go to church every day, and he would sit at a 90-degree angle. His back never touched the back, and he would fall asleep at one point and just tilt to the side and fall asleep. And all the students would wait for it, like just in church, and then just wait for him to fall asleep and like tilt to the side.
Yeah.
That's hilarious for the students.
That's that's the Chris Collinsworth Sunday night football slide that's become so popular.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that is.
Yeah. He did this almost every service, usually during the sermon, because he insisted on sitting perfectly erect in his pew. The moment that sleep overtook him was a dramatic one, and he suddenly tilted to the side. This caused much mirth among the cadets in the gallery who watched and waited for it. Jackson was fully aware of his problem, and it was typical of his stubbornness that he refused to do anything about it. When asked by some female friends why he did not just lean back in his pew so as to be less conspicuous and less of a bad example to the cadets, Jackson replied, "I will do nothing to superinduce sleep by putting myself at ease or making myself more comfortable. If, however, in spite of my resistance, I yield to my infirmity, then I deserve to be laughed at and accept as punishment the mortification I feel."
You got it, Stoney.
It is a weird way of figuring things out. And then he would leave wherever he was at 9 o'clock. If it was middle of conversation, if it was anything, as soon as the 9 o'clock bell tolled, going to sleep. He had a terrible upbringing, Jake. Both his parents died.
Sounds like it.
Orphaned. Wasn't raised without a mother. He had one sister who he liked. Yeah, so weird guy, okay? Now you ready to learn some good stuff about him?
Potentially.
You think that
We'll see.
Do you think the tides can be changed in your favor?
I mean, to a degree. Like I'm not saying like I'm out on this guy. I'm just saying if you ran into this guy in everyday life that was extremely literal, extremely religious, and acts the way he did, you'd hate this guy.
Yeah, but
Yes.
the stories are fantastic.
Right. Okay. As long as we're there. Now give me some of the goods.
Okay, there's one more I forgot. This is the best.
Okay. Well,
He thought that his left side of his body was heavier, or his right side of the body was heavier than the left side of his body.
Sure.
So he constantly felt unbalanced. And they said there is something about this that he was heavier on one side, but that's why he would always ride with one hand in the air so the blood would flow and it would lighten that side of his body. And he got his finger shot off by doing that.
there you go.
Isn't that crazy?
A little bit.
Well, yeah, he's a crazy guy. All right, so in the months leading up to the Civil War,
Sure.
he was opposed of it. He from West Virginia, which eventually left Virginia. Like Virginia seceded from the Union, and then West Virginia was like, "Well, we're going to secede from you guys.
Right.
Go back up there." So he was opposed to it. He did own some slaves,
Sure.
but he was opposed to the war. He said, in the months leading up to the war, he remained a confirmed Unionist. He opposed secession. Though he was a slave owner, he held no strident pro-slavery views, which is like that's mind-blowing for.
Right. Like, what's that the equivalent to nowadays?
I don't know, like being a thief, being like if you sell. Okay, so let's
Owning a farm and eating animals, but supporting PETA or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, what's something they want to make illegal?
Weed.
So if you own a weed farm, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough.
People who are anxious to bring on war don't know what they are bargaining for, he wrote. because he had been in war and seen it.
Right.
And everyone was, we talked about this at the beginning of the season. Everyone was so excited about the Civil War. They just thought it was this big grand adventure.
Right.
And he was at the Virginia Military Institute like, no,
Yeah.
guys, like this is bad. He said, I am in favor of making a thorough trial for peace. And if we fail in this and the state is invaded to defend it with and if we fail in this and the state is invaded to defend it with terrific resistance, even to taking no prisoners. So that's his light switch.
Right.
Like if we go to war,
That's
you're
it.
getting Stonewall Jackson.
Right.
And you want to know who that is? Well, let me tell you about his history in the Spanish-American War. Because his students knew of this.
Right.
They knew of like this is the war hero?
Right.
Like you're telling me this guy was crazy good and in the Spanish-American War, he's a fucking nut job.
Right.
He's a nut job.
Stonewall Jackson is the character in every movie that is like the quirky offbeat killer.
Yeah.
Like freaking Bond movies, freaking everything. The guy that this guy is a weirdo, but he's a trained killer. That's what I'm expecting to hear.
Flipping pages, gonna find it.
Sure.
Because the way they wrote this book is a different order than the way I'm doing it.
Stonewall Jackson.
The fuck is it? Okay. So he's in this fight with the Spanish.
Sure.
And there's this part of the battle where the Spanish are just shelling everyone, and all of the people that all of the soldiers with him have retreated.
Right.
And there's a cannon in the middle of the road, and they're trying to shoot back, and everyone retreats. And Thomas Jackson is just standing in the middle of the road. Cannons are flying at him, and just shooting a cannon by himself.
Right.
And he's like looking around. And he's like, "Are you guys gonna come help? Like, come on!" And they're all running away, and he's just crazy
Sure.
and relentless. He said, "My religious beliefs teach me to feel as safe in battle as in bed. God has fixed the time for my death, so I do not concern myself about that. But I will always be ready, no matter when it may overtake me. That is the way all men should live, and then all would be equally brave."
Partially true.
Yeah, he's like, God's gonna take care of my death, so whatever. But it's a little Darwinism. Like, well, you gotta try, man.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're okay with the courier dying, courier.
The artillerymen, meanwhile, facing what seemed to be certain death, fled to safety of a nearby ditch and bushes, but Jackson refused to leave the road, pacing back and forth alone while shells filled the air around him, including a cannonball that rocketed between his legs. He yelled to his men, "There is no danger. See, I am not hit." He later, in a letter, said this was the first lie he ever told.
Wow. Jackass.
He got no takers. They're like, no, man.
Yeah.
That cannonball went through your legs. You got nutmegged.
Must have been a powerful lie.
But finally, an old sergeant walked up, and together they dragged the remaining cannon across a ditch and up onto the road. They began firing again. As they did so, another member of the gun crew made his way back forward. Instead of accepting his help, Jackson shouted, "Go back yonder. Tell Colonel Truesdale to send men forward. Tell him with 50 men, we can overrun the battle ahead." There's like hundreds or 1,000 people. Give me 50 more men. We got this.
Right.
We got this. Jackson and his sergeant now stood with a single gun on the road amid a storm of ball, solid shot, shell canister, and musket fire so severe that no one else dared to raise his head above the roadside ditch. His own crew had abandoned him. The entire infantry regiment to which he had been attached had disappeared, except for a small escort. What Division Commander General William J. Worth saw when he finally rode up close enough to see what was going on was young Jackson, now in advance of the entire American army, still aiming and firing his cannon in a virtual single-handed duel with a significant part of the Mexican army. When Worth ordered Jackson to retire, Jackson refused to obey the order, saying that it was more hazardous to retreat than stay put. Are you at least commendable on his fighting?
I mean, that's impressive.
He was 23
No shade there.
23 years old, and he wasn't like a general, lieutenant, anything.
Just load in the cannon and let it rip, man.
Yeah. It would be
I'm in too deep.
It would be a good scene if like if this was a movie, they would make him like a heartbroken warrior. Like he's like, I got nothing to live for, sir. Fuck it.
Yeah, or it would be almost like the Captain America story. He'd be like the weakest and worst soldier, but when this situation actually comes up, he's like, well, if I'm the weakest and the worst, then I'll stay out here and do it until I'm dead.
Mm-hmm.
And he did not.
Yeah. Yeah. He was crazy.
And that.
And that. So this went through all the ranks. Like, holy shit, you guys got to hear about this Tom Jackson guy.
Right.
He's insane. He's the best fighter we have.
I miss that there's no like real gossip. Like how Stonewall Jackson got heard of was actual like gossip to newspapers, to different counties, to bar stories and all of that.
Yeah.
Now it's like, oh, Twitter. Yeah. LeBron said he could have played in New York. It's like that, that would have gotten trickled to me in a bar in 6 months. Now I find out immediately.
Like, I think, did everyone just believe everything, or I don't?
Right.
Because nothing was factful then.
There was trustworthy people. There was non-trustworthy people.
Yeah. So this led, and all his students were like, "That's the same fucking guy."
Right.
His first day on campus, he was wearing these boots. He would wear these really big boots.
Sure.
And one of the students, they would just mock him openly.
Right.
Like he would walk through campus and go, "Sir, those boots do not belong here." It's like, okay.
Yeah, right.
And he was like a glutton for punishment because he just didn't care.
Right.
He was like, if I'm to be laughed at, they will laugh at me. Whatever. But then war comes, man.
Right.
And
You want him on your side.
Okay, so this is the first glimpse his students get before the war.
Right.
So we're at the Virginia Military Academy.
VMI.
It's in Virginia.
VMA.
And everyone at the military academy is basically unionists at this point.
Right.
Because they're, federal military school, basically. Sure. But the South there's a lot of people succeeding, and they want Virginia on their side.
Right.
That's huge. Eventually, we've learned they do get them. So cadets who supported secession marched from campus into town, and they were greeted by a hostile, overwhelmingly pro-union crowd consisting mostly of members of local militia company. It was all coming to a head right here in this town.
Right.
So when one cadet returned to the institute and announced that cadets were being assaulted by unionists, the effect was instant and magical, wrote former cadet Charles Copeland White. Everyone rushed for his gun and a cartridge box, and they all rushed pell-mell for town. They all rushed pell-mell for town. I don't know that saying.
Sure.
Pretty cool. With Jackson's help, he managed to stop them and persuade them to return to their barracks. So he calmed this whole situation down.
Yeah.
It is unclear exactly what Jackson did, but according to the local minister, were it not for his intervention, blood would have been shed.
Yeah.
So he's like a man that doesn't talk. No one respected him, really.
Right.
Not that they didn't respect him. They knew him as the eccentric. The town actually came to kind of just like he was their local mascot. Like, oh,
Right.
yeah, there's Tom. 9 o'clock, watch him run home.
Yeah.
Like the local Asperger's person. Like, oh,
Dick Vitale.
So when the cadets got back to campus, they were all in high spirits, and they just assembled them all, right. In a hall. And the people were like, we got to address the crowd, and blah, blah, blah. No one was sure if they were serious or joking. As they spoke, however, cries went up through the hall for old Jack to address the crowd. And no one knew if the students were being serious or joking. And like,
Right.
You guys are being assholes again.
Yeah.
You just want to laugh at old Jack
Right.
some more. Considering who Jackson was, what the cadets apparently thought of him, and the gravity of the situation, it was a strange request. Still, Smith seemed to think it was a good idea. He was like the president or another professor. He turned to Jackson, who was seated next to him, and said, "I have driven the nail in," he said, "but it needs clinching. Speak with them." So bring us home. Bring us home, old Jack.
Read that sentence how you want to read that sentence.
I've driven the nail in them, but it needs clinching. Speak with them.
Okay. See, I think
Better?
it's more of a, I have driven the nail, Stonewall, but it needs clinching.
Good. If he's from
It's your time.
Tallahassee.
Tallahassee.
To the surprise of many of the cadets, Jackson mounted the rostrum. For those who witnessed it, what happened next was an astounding transformation, one that many would talk about for decades to come. You ready for that light switch, that flip?
I think so.
Here's what he stood up and he said, "Military men make short speeches. And as for myself, I am no hand at speaking anyhow. The time for war has not yet come, but it will come, and that soon. And when it does come, my advice is to draw the sword and throw away the scabbard." And the whole place went fucking nuts.
Yeah.
They went crazy. Like, whoa! They couldn't hear the next 3 speeches because they were just going fucking nuts over the crazy autistic professor who they mock just giving like those words.
Just brought the noise, man.
Isn't that great? That's a great quote.
Yeah.
Draw the sword and throw away the scabbard.
It's a literal man.
Draw the
He's
sword
being very literal.
and
there.
you're not putting it away. Because if we go to war, we're not taking any prisoners. Pretty
Yeah.
cool, right? So do you like him a little bit more now?
Like, not really. Like, I wish you started there and told me some of the other stuff. Like, I think the way this story's been depicted to me, it's tough because I just know he said that not from an aspect of being cool and powerful. He's saying that extremely literal.
Yeah,
Like,
but
we're gonna draw swords and kill.
yeah, but it's cool.
Is what he was saying.
But
yeah.
you're getting like the perspective that his students got, his warriors.
right.
They knew him as that, and then it comes.
I guess I would still be skeptical. I'd be like,
They were
what? Now we're yoked for this guy?
the thrilling effect.
Big Boots McLean?
The thrilling effect of those words is felt by the writer to this day. They touched the heart of every boy who heard them, and men now gray will tell of the enthusiastic cheers which ground out all further speeches. Went nuts for it.
Yeah.
So now we're going to talk about when battle came. Okay, the first battle of Manassas.
When the battle came.
The first battle of Manassas, this is where he got the name Stonewall.
Okay.
And it's pretty cool story because no one really knew who he was. Like the higher ups, you know,
Right.
like they didn't really. They put him at a desk job because he was crazy. When they went to war, when they left for Richmond, they were
Sure.
supposed to leave at noon, but everyone was ready, and he just sat on his horse, and his lieutenant or whatever was like, "Jackson, we're ready to move out." And he was like, "It's not noon." He's like, "Oh, we're ready though." I'm like, "We will wait." And they waited to the bell tongue, and then they
Till
went.
noon.
Very, very little. So he had his brigade, which is like 1 point something to 2,000 men. That was
Okay.
his. And that's kind of how the Civil War was structured at this first battle. Like there was brigades from the Tennessee, and this is a brigade. And he had the Western Virginia brigade. It was
Sure.
his men. And then they all had to meet up. And Beauregard was in charge of the Confederacy. And all of his plans were just like dumb as shit.
Right.
Kind of. So we talked about this on the episode. It's all about flanking. That's all the war's
Right.
about.
You got to flank the flank.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a good paragraph. It says, the first of all maxims for the conduct of a campaign. So basically, like everything, the first thing that you need to do to go to war is to oppose fractions of the enemy's army with the whole unit of your own. In other words, compel the enemy to divide while you unite and strike him divided. Or as our General Nathan Bedford Forrest put it in plain Confederate vernacular, get thar first with the most men.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah. This flank, and then a lot of flanking.
Love flanking.
So they had the battleground pretty much like, this is where it's going to happen.
Right.
Manassas Creek called Bull Run. The North like naming it after bodies of water. The South named it after like towns.
Sure.
Or places, whatever. So on the other side, you have, it wasn't McClellan yet. It was, I'm blanking on his name right now. But I think it was McDowell. So he had this whole, on the Union had this whole crazy, they woke up at 2 a.m. and they walked till, they were supposed to be 7 a.m. and
Right.
marched to flank.
Flank, right.
Yeah.
Got to flank.
So the Beauregard told Jackson and all the other brigades, like, this is where the main fight's going to be.
Right.
But the Union tactic of flanking actually worked because the main fight was actually now where the Union walked in the middle of the night.
Right.
But the Union, they were like 6 months in, all the soldiers, and so bad at marching,
Right.
they were just like would stop for creeks. They would stop to shit. They would if they heard something, they'd stop and get scared.
Right. Classic Northerners.
Jackson was a drill sergeant. They marched
Right.
10 hours a day. Like his men just fucking marched.
Right.
That's all they did, really. So anyway, what happened basically, let me find some quotes. I have this. No, I'm going to pass on that. What's interesting is the guy who developed the wigwag system, which was you held flags up to talk, communicate. He developed it for the United States Army, but then seceded and did it for the South. So they both had the same system, but
Okay.
kind of different.
Right.
Like I guess like different signals, but
Yeah.
same.
Call them different plays.
And you would set up 4 points, right? And then this guy was set up, and he saw the bayonets glistening off the sunrise, and knew that that's what McDowell's troops were doing. They were flanking to a different area. So Jackson got ready for war.
Right.
Said a little prayer. The Lord is on my side. I will not fear. What can man do unto me? The Lord is on my side as my helper. I shall look in triumph on those who hate me. So Jackson heard that everyone was waiting for the war to be where they were told it was going to be, all these different brigades.
Right.
And it never was there. And then they just heard there was war somewhere. Like they heard all the noise. Like, shit, we're missing out on the action.
Right.
So Jackson set the men on a brutally fast march. Basically like, yo,
Let's go.
let's go. One artilleryman recalled that they were running that distance like panting dogs with flopping tongues, with their mouths and throats full of impalpable red dust of that red clay country, thirsting for water almost unto death. As they approached the battlefield on a narrow woodland road, with the sounds of musket fire and artillery fire ringing in their ears, they beheld a sight that was both shocking and bewildering. Large numbers of Confederate soldiers moving in the opposite direction, broken, bloody, and in full retreat. Their commands were cut to pieces. The men told the wide-eyed Virginians the day was lost. So they run it. They hoof it.
Right.
They're dying. They're going to fight. Everyone's like, it's over. Like, they got us. We
Right.
won.
Don't tell that to Stonewall.
Yeah. Don't. That's what General B said to Stonewall. They were crossed paths, and he said to Jackson, General, they are driving us, he said. And the two men had known each other from West Point. And Jackson's reply to B,
They're driving you.
no. We will give them the bayonet.
Sure.
Like, we're not going to run away. We got swords. We got knives for close quarters battle.
Yeah.
You don't just run. We will give them the bayonet.
Give him the bayonet.
Another good quote.
Nah, that one's not good. You got me more excited for that one.
That one's good.
I don't think that's a good quote.
Why?
It's lame.
It's basically saying, like, you're a pussy.
No. Again, this is the literal guy. We're going to give him credit for that. Now he's literally saying, like, no, I kill men with my bayonet. That's what I'll try to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not saying you're a pussy.
Well, he may not be saying it, but B certainly feels that way.
And that's okay. That's fine. Put that on B. That's not credit to Bonewall.
Jackson's reaction to the alarm in B's voice said everything about his approach to the crisis. If McDowell's splendidly equipped legions were cutting everyone and everything in their path to pieces, Jackson would simply give them the bayonet. The notion was quaintly old-fashioned. Though the point of it was clear, a bayonet was an intimate and intensely personal way to kill someone. Jackson meant business. His first concern was not whether he should retreat along with the others or how he could get Johnson or Beauregard to send in reinforcements. He just was like, this is what we do. Hold the line. Don't let them come past us. Fight, and fight now. So there's this big hill that the Confederates have to come up to. And the strategy would be to go on the high ground, make them run up to you. Jackson doesn't do that. He finds some trees and along the side and lets them see the empty hill, and then hides along there. And so they see what McClellan, not McClellan is the other McDowell. They could have killed, they could have just won everything right there.
Sure.
But they thought there was more soldiers, and they thought that they were all retreating. So they waited 2 hours, which allowed Jackson to set up, when then allowed Beauregard, who was in charge of the Confederacy, to see what Jackson was doing. I was like, oh, shit, that was a really good strategy, Jackson.
Right.
So they went there, and Jackson rode behind his men and just continuously rode behind his men saying, steady, men, steady, all is well. Steady, men, steady, all is well. Reminds me of Herb Brooks in Miracle. Play your game. Play your game. And that's when Beauregard came and all the others were retreating, and they were like, Jackson's unit stands there like a stone wall. Boom.
There you go.
Stonewall Jackson. And his brigade became known as the Stonewall Brigade. And some of his soldiers was the Stonewall Jim. Like some of his soldiers, they all got the Stonewall moniker for being part of it.
It's pretty cool.
Stonewall Jim was the kid he kicked out of his class for asking, I don't understand what you're saying. Can you explain it? He kicked him out of class, and then he came to fight for him, and they became really good battle mates. He got shot in the hand, so he rode around with his hand in the air because he was off balance. And as he spoke, he jerked down his hand, and I saw blood was streaming from it. I exclaimed, General, you are wounded. Only a scratch. A mere scratch, Jackson replied. Just a flesh wound.
Yep.
So they win, basically, the first battle of Manassas. But President Jefferson Davis, the first people that talked to him were the people that ran away because they retreated.
Right.
And they were like, they fucking beat us, man. They beat us. So Jefferson Davis addressed everyone. He doesn't know who Jackson is really.
Right.
He kind of might
He
know the name,
knows.
but he doesn't know that he's who he's about to become
Right.
at all. And he goes and he goes and he says, I am President Davis. Follow me back on the field. This is not done. Oh, trying to pump everyone up.
Right.
And Jackson just stood up and said, we have whipped them. They ran like sheep. Give me 10,000 men, and I will take Washington tomorrow. President Jefferson Davis was like, whoa.
Okay.
10,000 men for this guy right here.
You guys in the same war as this guy?
Yeah. So that's all the fun stuff. He died in the war, got shot by his own men. He was going along the front lines on a reconnaissance mission to see where the front lines for the Union was set up. Sure. And when he was riding back, a bunch of Confederates thought it was Union, and they lit him up, and they shot off his arm. And Robert E. Lee said, Jackson has lost his right arm, and so have I. People talked in quotes back in the day. They loved it.
Yeah.
Or the people that were writing history gave them cool quotes. One or the other.
Yeah, that's true.
One or the other. And then he got really sick and he died in a month or so later.
That was what God wanted for him. For his
Stonewall
own
Jackson.
men to kill him.
I still have to finish the book, and I'm going to because I am enthralled by all this.
Right.
Some sad shit. I was just reading about his first wife. She died while giving birth to his son.
Sad.
And he had to figure out. He was really mad at God.
Right.
But he wrote a letter to his sisters but God
had to come to peace with
I guess
them.
God wanted them. He has a purpose for them, but I don't really. That's pretty bullshit.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So you still out on him?
I mean, he's a fun figure to talk about. I mean, I just think your eyes were lit up from Stonewall Jackson, and I think a lot of these guys we talk. I mean, Abraham Lincoln, some of these dudes, you're like, oh wow, that's a guy I want to grab a beer with. This guy, no.
Oh no, not at all.
Yeah, and that's what I thought we were gonna learn today. I thought Stonewall Jackson was gonna be this badass MFer. You tell the story about him literally taking on an army with a cannon in the road, and you're like, whoa, cool guy.
Yeah.
I'm in with that
Well,
guy.
he's mixed figure.
Then you hear why, and it's like, oh. But, hey,
Mixed figure.
good for him. We're still talking about him.
He was one of,
2018 in Las Vegas, Nevada.
he was one of the smartest minds in the Civil War.
Okay.
He was one of the smartest generals and leaders, and his counterattacks and his flanking maneuvers were like ungodly.
Right.
Between the Battle of Bull Run and his death, the campaigns he ran through the like Shenandoah Valley were like legendary.
Yeah.
Just terrorizing people. Him and Beauregard, who then went to form the KKK,
Right.
which wasn't as cool.
Not as cool.
Yeah.
Don't join them.
Please don't, honestly.
Don't join them.
All right, that's about it for the Stonewall Jackson. I don't know how long we're at. 45 minutes. Wow.
How about that?
Well, it's because I love this guy and I read
Right.
a lot. But I think there's a lot of those stories are TV characters. Whether you're laughing at them is the thing. You were ready to laugh with someone. We're laughing at someone.
Right. Like, I just don't think I could get up and play for Stonewall Jackson. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I think you could. I think he once you get into battle, he'd win you over.
There's a chance.
You see what he's doing.
There's a chance.
Yeah. That's strange. All right, we got one episode left. And it's going to be next Tuesday. And that's it.
Yes, sir.
That's the end of it. And then we'll do and then we're going to do 2 weeks off for Christmas and New Year's because I think they're both on Tuesdays. And then we will come back and we'll do, if you guys have any questions, send them in, johnboy_, or you can send them into talkinyanks@gmail. We need to make it Laughs from the Past email, I guess.
Yeah.
I think laughsfromthepast@gmail.com is an email address. I don't think I've ever checked it. If you guys have fun tidbits that you think that should be said, if you have questions, if you want me to do some more research, that's like my dream. So send in some stuff. We're going to recap season 1 a little bit, or season 2 a little bit, and then we're going to tell you plans for season 2. But I will let you guys know this at the end of next week's episode as well. See ya. Jake, say some of your last words.
See ya.
You like the scabbard quote, though.
Yeah, that's good.
I get goosebumps when I read that quote.
I don't,
Yeah.
because it's very literal.
Yeah, but it's awesome.
Like, if he was saying it in this awesome symbolic way, like, the sword is out of the scabbard, like, this war is going to be opening up, and, like, it's time for death, there is no scabbard. Like, no. He's saying, kill people with sword.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's more than that. It's saying...
I don't think so. That's what I'm saying.
No, he's saying
With
we're
how
going to...
literal he is.
No, because you're going to put the sword back in the scabbard. Like, he would know that. He did that. He didn't, like...
He's saying you're taking it out to kill.
He's saying you're taking it out, and we're not going to surrender. We're not going to stop.
Right. But I think he's, like, not symbolizing all of that.
No, I think he was. I
Like,
think,
the same thing with the battle he goes into. He's talking about they have the bayonets on the end.
yeah.
I think he's being literal again. But I think it just played out really well for him.
The bayonets one is literal, but the scabbard one isn't literal because they put their sword back in the scabbard in between battles and shit. It's not like they just went around without the scabbard.
Like, yes and no. Yes and no. Like, he's saying he's not saying, like, oh, we're about to go to war and open up this whole can of words in the nation. It's, if we start fighting, we're taking out our swords and we're killing them.
Yes.
Yes.
And we're not going to stop. But, like, they're not actually going to throw away their scabbard. They need them. So it's not literal.
Okay. Not the throwing away of the scabbard.
That's the whole thing. Take out your sword, throw away the scabbard. That's what he says.
All right. Take it.
It's awesome.